John Mathieson, the entrepreneurial tenant farmer from Midlothian who wanted more than Scotland could offer and found his opportunity on the Otago Peninsula. John Mathieson was born in 1822 here at Mid-Calder, just southwest of Edinburgh. Like his father before him, he became a tenant farmer. But he was constrained by the limited opportunities for a man of his class in the Scottish system. For example, he regularly had to renew his lease on some of Lord Meadowbank's land here on the Pentland Hills near Kirk Newton and close to his father's farm, where he was noted for his skill with sheep. In 1853, John asked for access to some better fields, but his request was denied by Lord Meadowbank's factor, restricting his ability to improve his flocks. Meanwhile, two of his brothers had emigrated, one to Canada and another to Otago, and the option of following them must have weighed heavily on John's mind. In 1851, John married Catherine Johnston from Lochmaben in Dumfriesshire. It was an excellent match. Not only was she a fine wife and mother, but she also proved to be a skilled business partner. Over the next 7 years, they had 3 children, while their farm quietly prospered within the constraints that the Mathiesons faced here. News of his brother's exploits in the colonies must have underlined those limitations and left John pondering his future. When Otago's energetic immigrant recruiter James Adam passed through the district in 1857, the Mathiesons were prime targets for his message about Otago's great opportunities. By early the next year, they decided to go. Surrendering their lease, selling off stock and disposing of unwanted chattels, they paid for passage on the Jura and sailed for Otago from Greenock the end of May 1858. John and Catherine brought more with them than most pioneer immigrants, reflecting their relative prosperity in Scotland. Choosing to emigrate was for them taking a path to greater independence and opportunity, rather than a desperate departure from hard times at home. They were not assisted immigrants and came fully equipped with a plough along with a host of other basic farm implements, as well as furniture and dairying equipment. On arrival, John immediately applied to the Reverend Thomas Burns to lease his farm at Grants Braes, which was just near here in the modern suburb of Waverley. The Mathiesons then moved into a substantial stone cottage, which had in fact been the very first stone building erected in the settlement back in 1848. They would spend the next 7 years here, gradually building up a dairy herd and profitably selling their milk, cheese and butter to the residents of Dunedin just across the bay. Coming to New Zealand had always been about achieving more, however, and in 1864, John bought a 78-acre farm of their own in a little valley halfway between Portobello and Anderson's Bay. He set his brother-in-law up to manage the new property, remaining at Grants Braes for 2 more years, until a fine new farmhouse and outbuildings were ready to move into. Built of peninsula bluestone with Welsh slate roof tiles, the property became known as Springfield and is one of the oldest surviving pioneer buildings on the Otago Peninsula. It is significant both as a local version of a Scottish-style farmhouse, but also as the site of New Zealand's first dairy factory. This was John Mathieson's initiative, but it was a cooperative venture also involving many of his neighbours. In August 1871, 3 enamel cast iron tubs were set up in the Mathieson's kitchen with a large wooden vat for milk in the barn. And thus, ever so humbly, began New Zealand's commercial cheese production. In the long run, this pioneering peninsula dairy cooperative was not commercially viable, but it laid the groundwork for dairy cooperatives that followed and transformed the New Zealand economy. John experimented with sheep on Springfield in the early 1870s as well, but quickly realised that the farm was better suited to dairying. He was always a canny businessman, prepared to experiment and innovate, but always with an eye on the bottom line. He steadily invested his returns in land and mortgages, turning a tidy profit and boosting his family fortunes. Meanwhile, the Mathiesons played a full part in the developing life of the Peninsula community. John served as chairman of the building committee for the Presbyterian Church here at Pukaheki, and also served for a time as the librarian of the small lending library that was attached to it. Both John and Catherine had siblings precede or follow them to Otago, and they all settled nearby, creating a lively family life for an extended clan of Mathiesons and Irvines here on Otago Peninsula. All three Mathieson children then married and had children, but unlike many of the Otago pioneers, neither John nor Catherine was destined to live a particularly long life to enjoy the exploits of those grandchildren. Catherine died first from illness quite suddenly in 1883, just weeks before her only son's wedding. And after his wife's unexpected death, John's health also began to deteriorate. He died in 1887, just 4 years later, aged only 65. A letter of condolence from a nephew in Scotland provides a fitting epitaph for his character. He was a man of deeds, not words, full of thought and purpose, and when he had once resolved on doing a thing, it was a very formidable obstacle indeed that kept him from attaining his purpose.